Listen up. There's no more excuses.
We're empowering those who want the hustle by exposing the status quo.
The days of ordinary are over.
It's time to crush mediocrity and start discovering your greatest potential.
Welcome to the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation.
To the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle.
Welcome back to another episode of the Hustle Nation podcast. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about bandwidth. It's a subject we haven't dove deep into before, but it's really important because I think just about everything in business and leadership ties back to bandwidth, whether it's growth and scaling, revenue, burnout, delegation, you name it. Bandwidth is really important. And the subject came about, Dustin, because you and I were talking about this. You were sharing some recent experiences. And why don't you dive into that and tell our listeners a little bit more?
Yeah. So for those that don't know, at McClone Insurance, we're an insurance broker and we rank in the top 1% in the country. And we've also doubled in the last 5 years and the plan to do the same in the next 5. And I share that just because what that's done is it's created bandwidth problems for me and frankly for others in our organization as well. Because when you grow that fast, if you don't change what you're doing on a daily basis, just the multiplier effect, you're going to run out of bandwidth really quickly. And it's kind of amazing to think about how quickly it happens. You know, I can almost equate it to like maybe Christmas time, right? When if you have kids and they get a couple presents under the tree. Even if they only get 2, if they get 2 presents under the tree, but they don't get rid of 2 other ones, eventually all of a sudden you have a growing collection, right? That can be exponential in a growing organization and in a leader's day-to-day life. And so, over the last number of years, I've worked really, really hard to delegate, empower, create an infrastructure that, gets ahead of growth. And it's worked in a lot of ways, but I think the other challenge, I'm encountering, and I think it's very common for leaders, is no matter how fast you're delegating and empowering, it almost feels like it's never fast enough in a high growth environment because you're no longer measured, year over year, or even quarter after quarter. It's almost like every month the world is changing so fast. And so I think, one of the things, I've had to learn how to do, and in some ways I'm still learning how to do is how do you identify those things, years in advance so that you can begin either, building, training someone else around you, or do you need to go find that person, right? And replace it that way. But just finding ways to stay ahead of your bandwidth, because a lot of times the things that you're spending your time on, the reason you are is in many cases because those are some of the things that you like. I mean, some of the things that I've delegated over the years were things that I really enjoyed doing. So it wasn't like I didn't really want to delegate it. But then as a leader, you come to this point of, yes, that is something that I really like and I really enjoy doing. But then I have a choice to make. Either I need to go into a role where I can just continue to focus on that thing, or I need to move on and realize that I need to focus on these other things that aren't necessarily more or less important. They're just unique to my capability and unique to my role that if I'm not focusing on, no one else will, because no one else will have that bandwidth.
Sorry, I had to send a message real quick.
Oh, you're good.
I was not listening for the last probably 60 seconds of what you said.
All right,
Sorry, something time sensitive.
Yeah, we'll cut out. All right. So all I was saying was basically, bandwidth, delegation. You need to find. What? Screw it. Let's just start over.
No, I can pop in rather than starting over.
Okay, sounds good.
So one thing that's interesting for me with bandwidth is attaching it to expectations, and whether that be expectations of yourself or expectations of your team. So often you'll approach yourself at the end of the year with a question of, was this a successful year? Was this a good quarter? Did I reach my sales goals? And a lot of us who are very ambitious will set these big goals with great intentions. But if we don't actually have the bandwidth, what is the probability that we will succeed? And I always tell myself, if you set goals that are too high, that don't meet or match your bandwidth, you will set yourself up for failure. And it may not even really be failure. It's just that the goals did not match your bandwidth. And that's always something that I think any good leader should look at with themselves and with their team is what is the correct incremental growth and scalability and whatnot. And the thing that you said is something that I've focused on a lot in the last year, couple of years really, is can I let go? And the answer is almost always yes, you can let go, but you come to grips with it because at a certain point, people get to that level of burnout. They get to the level of frustration year over year over year, and they say, something has to give. I have to learn how to delegate. I have to get comfortable asking people for help. Or if it's not even that, it's I need to learn to find a different way. And what really opened my eyes to this was the book Who Not How. And, I think in a nutshell, you could summarize it as this is if you want to grow, it's not a matter of how, because most of us know how. It's fairly easy if you think about it, but you need the who's. You need the who's to help you grow and scale, which means we need to hire. We need to delegate. We need to offload more of our responsibilities. It could be an executive assistant for some people, could be more salespeople for another team or another company. And that to me is the ultimate kumbaya here is it's a who thing. And if we know we want to grow, we know we want to scale, everybody knows we have limited bandwidth, whether you want to believe it or not. You could grow, but you're still going to run into that issue at some point. Why not start to delegate now?
Yeah. And I think so. One of the things I've seen with a lot of leaders, including myself, is, the art of delegation is easier said than done because so many times we believe that, we want to delegate and we can delegate, but we're in our role for a reason because, in some ways, maybe we're a little bit of control freaks, but, we also are high performance, right? And so we've failed a lot, we've learned a lot. And so we've learned how to do things better. And one of the hardest things about delegation is if every time you delegated, it was really clear and really easy, and the person you delegated it to always exceeded your expectations and performed better than you ever did, everyone would delegate all the time. The problem is that just doesn't happen. And it doesn't mean it never happens. I think that's one of the other failures of a lot of leaders is we think that if we delegate to someone and they do it differently, that inherently means that they're not doing it as well. Well, to your point of the who, not how, right? Like if you're finding the right people and you delegate, they might do it different, but that doesn't mean they're doing it worse. That might actually mean they're doing it much better, because you weren't as good at it. You weren't spread thin. They have a fresh eyes, whatever. But I think the hard part about delegation is we've all, as leaders, we've delegated and it hasn't worked out, right? It's been there's that bomb that goes off, or there's the big problem that happens, or someone just doesn't execute. And so, one of the things I've thought a lot about is like what the first one is easy, right? If you delegate it and the person's a rock star and they do it better than you do it without really a whole lot of coaching or direction, that's easy, right? If you can find that person, find that person. But it's usually not quite that easy. So a lot of other times what we're doing is we're delegating to someone that maybe hasn't done this as much, maybe doesn't have as much experience, but we way underestimate how long it took us to learn that skill at the scale was, right? It's human nature, right? We look at where we are, we don't look at where we were. And so, you might have been doing this for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And so, yeah, you can anticipate a lot of things. And this person has been doing it for a month and they've made some mistakes. Well, one, how good were you at expectations? How good were you with, clarity of outcome? How good were you with training? How good were you with the support, right? And I think one of the problems with it is I think so often we as leaders, the reason actually delegation doesn't work is because we are delegating to someone that does need some direction, some coaching, some clarity of accountability. And because our bandwidth is already so stretched, you hear it all the time. It's like, well, I don't have time to train this person. Well, guess what? If you don't have time to train the person, I mean, it could work if you happen to have found the person that can just instinctively do it better than you can. But if we're realistic about it, most of us, we think we've figured it out on our own, but we likely learn from people. Now, maybe we learn from people outside of our organization, right? Maybe we learn from podcasts and books and mentors and things like that. But there's a lot of things that we as humans, we learn from other people. We just don't necessarily attribute it that way. And so to me, as leaders, when you feel that bandwidth and you need to delegate, the hardest part is actually taking the extra time to get really, really clear on what that means and actually creating, basically forcing yourself into creating that bandwidth early, because that's what's going to give you the time, energy, and effort to actually delegate it appropriately to allow that next person to have success.
What's up, listeners? I just wanted to say thank you for being a part of the Hustle Nation community. We are absolutely thrilled and honored that you listen to our show. I wanted to take a break to share a special resource with you. I'm talking about our 2020 Vision Guide. This is a pivotal tool we use in our workshops where participants typically invest thousands of dollars for transformative experiences. Imagine having a crystal clear, actionable roadmap to not just meet but exceed your personal and professional goals. That's the power of the 2020 Vision Guide. And here's the best part. We're offering it to you for free. This is your chance to leverage a tool that has propelled hundreds of people achieve unparalleled success. Visit our website now. I'm including the URL in the show notes below, where you can download our guide and start your journey toward clarity and achievement. Don't wait. It's time to create the life you deserve today. Now back to the show.
The thing that you said that really rings a bell for me is I don't have time. Now, we hear this at home. We hear it with our kids, our friends, family, our team. And I would argue this is, can you afford not to make time? Can you afford not to invest an hour, 15 minutes for a couple days in training this person? The answer is probably not. I don't think you can. If you want to grow and you truly want to scale, it's not a matter of finding time, because you'll never find time. I talk about this a lot because I think it's just interesting, where I have some friends who are at a position in their life where they can play golf literally whenever they want, almost. And it's like 10 a.m. on a Tuesday or 1 p.m. on a Thursday. And it's like, are you crazy? I got shit to do. And I remind myself at the end of the summer, like around where we are now, it's like you look back and I've played golf maybe 10 times, which is kind of depressing in some regard. I will not find the time if I continue to work the way I have. But if I really want to do it, if I enjoy doing it, if it means a lot to me, then I will make time to do it, which means, you know what? Maybe I'm not watching the baseball game tonight. Maybe I'm not binge watching Netflix on the weekend because I spent 4 hours doing something that maybe was a luxury for me. And that's where the same goes with work is, you know what? You may create a backlog for yourself, but what does that do long term is now you have someone who's fully capable of being able to take some of that stress off of your shoulders and some of the workload, so that guess what? You can do the most important thing, which is work on the business and less working in the business where you're needed the most, right? So that's the thing that I always go back to is, can you afford not to do it? And you might be right. Maybe you really don't have time, but ask yourself, can I afford not to?
Totally agree. And so time is an interesting thing, as we've talked about. If anyone's listening, they're saying they don't have enough time, track your time for 2 weeks. Track your time for 2 weeks in 15-minute increments. It's something I do every 6 months for myself. And every time I tell myself it's not going to matter, I'm already efficient enough. And there's always something that you find. But I think your point is exactly right, is the fact that it's not even necessarily just time. It's prioritization. Oh, the age-old example is if you say you don't have enough time, what if a loved one had a medical condition this afternoon? What would happen? Well, you would change your schedule. You would change your priorities instantly, right? And the point being is now I understand that there's some reality to that, right? Like now, if that happens every afternoon, perhaps that's not really going to work very well. But the point being is there's seasons where you say, you know what, I know I want to keep doing this, because usually where we're addicted is we're addicted to the growth of other things. And, we got the iron in this fire and the iron in this fire, and we want to help this person. We want to help this. And it's all fine, but it's really just a matter of what is the prioritization. So to really look at your life and say, where am I spending my time? And literally lay them out on paper to make choices. Because, to your point, whether it's leisure activity like golf, right? Whether it's time with family, or whether it's time to delegate, right? Whatever those things are, if you just carve out that time to say, okay, this is the most important thing for me to do right now, for whatever reason, it's really easy to make it the top priority. We try to assume that you can't because of social norms, right? You can't I can't make that a priority because I need to show up in this way. In rare instances, is that right? I would say in 95% of the time, it's actually just head trash. You're spinning your wheels somewhere, you're wasting time somewhere, you're misprioritizing somewhere, because as humans, we are instinctively they're built basically to like lie to ourselves, right? Our brains are built to protect us. And so when we feel an invasion, when we feel stress, right? Like our brains kind of protect us. And one of the ways we protect ourselves is by rationalization. And that rationalization of I don't have time, or well, I have to do this, or I have to do that, or is usually way overbuilt in our brain. And so to find those things that are actually reality. And the last thing I'll say on it is I think part of the problem with that is because we get in this cycle of I don't have time, you don't spend time thinking about where you're spending your time. You just feel like you can muscle it out. And again, there are seasons of life. I mean, if I look at the last month of my life, there was, my oldest kid, my daughter going off to college. I had a lot of corporate travel, and we had a personal travel that maybe was a few months ago. But, all of a sudden those things starts to stack up where it's just, there's a lot of time taken out of the system. And guess what? My prioritization had to change in that season. Now, I couldn't keep that prioritization forever, but in that season, it was like there was a lot of unique things that were going on, both with corporate travel and in my personal life, that just changed my prioritization. Now if I look at the next month and the next quarter, that isn't really happening. There really isn't much corporate travel. There's no personal travel. There's, I don't have a big life event like that. And so guess what? Now my prioritizations can change again, which, to your point, change your priority, you change your time.
Yeah, really, really good point there. I think too that we often forget about some of the simplest, easiest things we can do. And Dustin, you and I have talked about this, whether it be investing in a planner like the Hustle Planner, which is available on Amazon, by the way, shameless plug. But more importantly, you can set reminders in your calendar. I think it's just important whether you have a planner or not, because some people, it doesn't matter if we tell them this till we're blue in the face, they're just not going to do that. I know plenty of people that I've worked with in the past who are really good about blocking out their calendar. So whether you use your Google Calendar or your iOS calendar, if there are projects and work you need to get done for specific clients, go into your calendar and save that hour block you have, because guess what? John or Susie down the hall is not going to go and usurp that time from you because it's blocked. It's protected to a certain degree. And it's a reminder for you that we need, by the way, we all need it. I know, as much as that sounds elementary, to get that shit done. And if we don't go about that, things will slip through the cracks. We are human. We are not perfect. We never will be. We will forget about things. So if you want to build efficiency and you want to make sure you have your priorities taken care of, put that stuff on your calendar. And I think you'll be mesmerized how things change over the course of time. But you have to really, at the end of the day, protect your time. And if you protect your time, you're probably more willing to give things up, to delegate, which will give you some bandwidth. And by the way, this is kind of like how I wrap this up is when you have bandwidth, you have clarity. And when you have bandwidth and clarity, you feel like you have your mental health. You don't feel like you're going to burn out. You don't feel like you're going crazy. But that is a sign that you are doing things well. You're doing things correctly. And as a leader, guess what? People tend to mirror your behaviors and your actions. So if you are doing this and you're talking about this and you're talking about how it's alleviated a lot of the pain points, what do you think they're going to do? How do you think they're going to react? And then ultimately, what is the impact that has on your team, their performance, and your bottom line? Anything else?
Yeah,
or want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll add to it, right, is one of the things we talk about when people are thinking about prioritization, time, bandwidth. Everybody's in a different spot, right? And there's lots of different tactics that can be used to free up that time. The thing you said at the end, I think is the most critical element, is if you create bandwidth and you create clarity, that's actually where you accelerate. And while everyone's in different spots and have different challenges and pulled in different directions, if you ever find yourself where you're in that spin cycle of I'm trying to figure out how to get out of it, it's usually one of those two things. It's bandwidth and clarity. And so if you can capture both of those, you will feel completely different and you'll accelerate fast.
Yeah, that's ultimately it. And anyone listening to this probably has seen this and experienced this in the past or recent memory, or I guarantee you there are people within your organization who are feeling this very thing right now. And again, whether you're a junior employee, a senior employee, or anything in between, finding more bandwidth is just so key for all of those reasons. So hopefully you take a moment to reflect on that. We want everyone to be happy. We want everyone to have bandwidth to be able to do the things that they want to do personally and professionally. Take this to make some changes, and hopefully we'll see you on the flip side. Thanks for listening to another episode.
Thank you for being part of the Hustle Nation. If you're serious about raising the bar in your personal and professional life and willing to go all in on your success, head over to hustleleaders.com. Here you can get access to our Hustle Productivity ebook, attend our Hustle Masterclass, or challenge yourself to the 30-day Hustle Challenge. Pairing these tools and training with the Hustle Nation podcast will help you advance to a whole new level. Until next time, stay hungry and inspire those around you to hustle.